So, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens lost to the Buffalo Bills 17-3 in the 2021 divisional round of the playoffs. And look, it was a really ugly game. Buffalo was not great in this game. Their defense showed up and played great, but their offense wasn't great. But ultimately, they got the win. Congratulations to Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, and the Buffalo Bills. And look, Lamar Jackson did not play well in this game. He threw a very, crucial, game-clinching pick six virtually for the Buffalo Bills in this game. On the goal line, Justin Tucker missed several field goals, which is very uncharacteristic of arguably the greatest field goal kicker of all time, or at least the most talented field goal kicker of all time, Justin Tucker, to miss multiple field goals in a playoff game. But my biggest takeaway from that game was Baltimore has not done a good enough job supporting Lamar Jackson on offense. Buffalo had no respect for the Baltimore Ravens wide receiver corps. Zero respect at all. They played tight man-to-man coverage, and they just pinned their ears back and said, Lamar Jackson, you're going to make tight window throws. We're going to pressure you. We're going to expose this offensive line. And your offense, they got no shot versus our defense. And Buffalo's defense over the past couple of weeks has struggled, people. It really has. Up until that Baltimore game, people were questioning Buffalo's defense. And until Lamar Jackson is given a true number one wide receiver, and until the Baltimore Ravens get Lamar Jackson more dynamic weapons on the outside to throw to, the Baltimore Ravens, they will continue to come up short. And Greg Roman, he deserves blame as well. Greg Roman has to start switching things up. Whereas Baltimore, they're going to be a playoff team year in and year out with Lamar Jackson because he's a top 5 quarterback arguably to this day. But ultimately, they're going to come up short. They're not going to go far enough because they're not explosive enough on offense. And you can blame Lamar Jackson if you want. You can call Lamar Jackson a choker if you want. But I got to ask you all this question. Who is afraid of a wide receiver corps led by Marquise Hollywood Brown and Willie Snead? Mark Andrews is good, but he's a tight end that disappears in big games. No one is afraid of that wide receiver corps, people. And do you know there's a trend with the final 4 teams remaining in the 2021 NFL playoffs? Not Baltimore, pardon me. Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, and Kansas City. Do you know all 4 of those teams have in common? They have top 5 wide receivers. Devontae Adams, top 5 wide receiver. Tyreek Hill, top 5 wide receiver. Stephon Diggs, arguably top 5 wide receiver. And Mike Evans, a couple of years ago, you could make the argument he was a top 5 wide receiver. He's a tier 1 wide receiver. And Antonio Brown's on that roster too. He's not going to play this week, but Antonio Brown's really, really good. He was a tier 1 wide receiver for a while. So, folks, look at what Lamar Jackson has to work with. Patrick Mahomes has better weapons. Aaron Rodgers has Devontae Adams. Russell Wilson has DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Josh Allen has a top 5 wide receiver corps. Tom Brady has a top 5 wide receiver corps. Kyler Murray has DeAndre Hopkins. Even Drew Brees had Michael Thomas this past year. Even Deshaun Watson had Will Fuller, who's not the best number one wide receiver, but if he were put on the Baltimore Ravens roster right now, he'd be the best wide receiver on that team. The Baltimore Ravens do not have enough good wide receivers on the outside to out-talent the opposing team's secondary. And as good as Lamar Jackson is, we'll never know how great he can be until he gets a number 1 wide receiver. And Baltimore will continue to fall short if they don't put weapons around Lamar Jackson. They have failed Lamar Jackson in that regard. They put okay weapons around him, but they're not striking fear in defensive coordinators. If I'm the Baltimore Ravens, I'm trading for Julio Jones. I'm drafting some wide receivers because it's unacceptable. They have no dynamic weapons on the outside. And Lamar Jackson is what's making that offense go. It's not J.K. Dobbins. It's not Mark Andrews. It's Lamar Jackson making sugar cream cookies out of 2 and 3 star ingredients. Because that wide receiver core is not very good. So, look, you guys can bury Lamar Jackson if you want. You can call him a choker if you want. I'm going to be the reasonable sports analyst that I am and say, until Lamar Jackson gets a true bona fide wide receiver on the outside, I don't expect Baltimore to win a Super Bowl because they're not good enough. That offense is not good enough to win a Super Bowl. They're not. If Lamar Jackson goes out there and wins a Super Bowl with this current supporting cast, he deserves to be called an elite quarterback because you should not win a Super Bowl with the supporting cast because, in my opinion, it's not good enough. And people could say, what about Tom Brady? What about Tom Brady? Tom Brady had Rob Gronkowski throughout most of his prime. Mark Andrews is not Rob Gronkowski. Not to mention, Tom Brady had Bill Belichick by his side. As good as John Harbaugh is, he's not Bill Belichick, people. So that's how I feel about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, I'm going to give him a pass this year. He won his first ever playoff game. And ultimately, I look at the Baltimore Ravens and I say, they don't have enough good weapons on the outside to win a Super Bowl. They're not dynamic enough on offense. You should not blame Lamar Jackson for the Baltimore Ravens' shortcomings, at least this year.
Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juiciest Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juiciest Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.